Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Ram Ram
Hare
Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So, Sri Raj Mataji, when you're ready, you can start, Mataji. I'll share my screen. I think it's Sri Raj Mataji today. Let's see. This is not there.
Yeah, I think so. She's not lifting the call, Prabhuji. I tried calling her. She said
Ah,
she joined, but yeah.
okay, got it. Someone else would like to read today? Okay, otherwise I can read. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nastiki. So, today we're reading from Canto 4, chapter 20, text 1 onwards. Lord Vishnu's title is Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Prutu. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, being very much satisfied by the performance of 99 horse sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, appeared on the scene. Accompanying him was King Indra. Lord Vishnu then began to speak. Text 2. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, My dear King Prithu, Indra, the King of Heaven, has disturbed your execution of 100 sacrifices. Now he has come with me to be forgiven by you. Therefore, excuse him. Text 3. O King, one who is advanced in intelligence and eager to perform welfare activities for others is considered best amongst human beings. An advanced human being is never malicious to others. Those with advanced intelligence are always conscious that this material body is different from the soul. Text 4. If a personality like you, who are so much advanced because of executing the instructions of the previous acharyas, is carried away by the influence of my material energy, then all your advancement may be considered simply a waste of time. Text 5. Those who are in full knowledge of the bodily conception of life, who know that this body is composed of nishays, desires and activities resulting from illusion, do not become addicted to the body. Text 6. How can a highly learned person who has absolutely no affinity for the bodily conception of life be affected by the bodily conception in regard to house, children, wealth, and similar other bodily productions? Text 7. The individual soul is one, pure, non-material, and self-effulgent. He is the reservoir of all good qualities, and he is all-pervading. He is without material covering, and he is the witness of all activities. He is completely distinguished from other living entities, and is transcendental to all embodied souls. Text 8. Although within the material nature, one who is thus situated in full knowledge of the Paramatma and Atma is never affected by the modes of material nature, for he is always situated in my transcendental loving service. Text 9. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, continued, My dear King Prithu, when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied within. Text 10. When the heart is cleansed of all material contamination, the devotee's mind becomes broader and transparent, and he can see things equally. At that stage of life, there is peace, and one is situated equally with me as Satchidananda Vigraha. Text 11. Anyone who knows that this material body, made of the 5 gross elements, the sense organs, the working senses, and the mind, is simply supervised by the fixed soul, is eligible to be liberated from material bondage. Text 12. Lord Vishnu told King Puthu, My dear king, the constant change of this material world is due to the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature. The 5 elements, the senses, the demigods who control the senses, as well as the mind which is agitated by the spirit soul, all these taken together comprise the body. Since the spirit soul is completely different from this combination of gross and subtle material elements, my devotee who is connected with me in intense friendship and affection, being completely in knowledge, is never agitated by material happiness and distress. So that completes today's reading. Thank you. Chaitanya Prabhu, whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji.
Okay. Oh, it says host has disabled screen sharing.
Sorry, Prabhu, I'll make you co-host. Yeah, please try now, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, Sundar and Prabhu, for reading. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to share something from Srimad Bhagavatam today. So for my own purification, for the pleasure of all assembled Vaishnavas, we will read something from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, text 1 to 12. Happy Narsingh Chaturdashi to all devotees. I'll start by offering my prayers. Om Kyantimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschate Deshatarane जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारणम् Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20. And the title of this chapter is Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena of Maharaj Prithu. So just to give you a background, what happened so far in this particular past few chapters, you see Maharaj Prithu gets himself ready to perform the wonderful Ashwamedha Yajna, the horse sacrifice, and he's already finished 99 sacrifices, and as he's about to do the 100th sacrifice, how in the previous chapter, Indra Devta comes and tries to obstruct it by stealing the horse multiple times, and how Prithu Maharaj, wonderful accomplished son, he goes after Indra Devta, brings the horse back. But finally, Prithu Maharaj gets ready to attack Indra Devta. But the Brahmanas say that no, you should not be doing that in the middle of the sacrifice. So they call Indra Devta to the sacrifice by their powers, and they're about to destroy him when Lord Brahma appears and he gives instruction. And we saw in the discussion yesterday how he gives wonderful instructions and advice to Prithu Maharaj. And based on his advice, listening to a higher authority, how Prithu Maharaj wonderfully agrees to stop his sacrifices and just remain incomplete in a way at 99 instead of going to 100 sacrifices. So with that background, we'll see what happens next. So in text 1 is described, Maitreya Muni continues describing to Vidur that being very much satisfied by the performance of 99 sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, appeared on the scene. Along with him came Indra Devta. So what's important to understand over here, that even though he could not finish the accomplished intent of finishing 100 sacrifices, What pleased Lord Vishnu more was his ability to forgive and ability to follow instructions from a higher authority. Prithu Maharaj did not complain to Lord Brahma, or goes on to complain to Lord Vishnu that, I'm more qualified than Indra. This is my service. Why was I not able to do my service? I wanted to do this. But instead of putting I in the scenario, Prithu Maharaj surrenders himself to the instruction of Lord Brahma, and that is what pleases Lord Vishnu more than him completing 100 sacrifices. That's one important point we learn. In the verse, wonderful, again, descriptions are given for the Lord. This Lord is described as Yajnapati, the father of all sacrifices, and Yajnabhuk, the one who accepts the offering of sacrifices. Text 2 onwards, now the Supreme Personality of Godhead starts to speak. So, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Lord Vishnu said, my dear King Prithu, Indra, the King of Heaven, has disturbed your execution of 100 sacrifices. Now he has come with me to be forgiven by you. Therefore, please excuse him. So here, Lord Vishnu is talking to King Prithu and giving him instructions based on how an advanced devotee should behave. And just to sort of remind him and to bring out this quality and to glorify his devotee, King Prithu, Lord Vishnu shares all these instructions in what we see in today's discussion. The first quality that he's talking about, Lord Vishnu, is the quality of forgiveness. In the readings from Gurujan Prabhu, it was described that an intelligent devotee does not take action against the soul or body. One who does not forgive but choose to retaliate proves that he is under the influence of material energy. So oftentimes, when we are practicing spiritual life, and our goal should be to advance every day in order to achieve the goal of Krishna Prem. But when we stop and ask ourselves the question, are we really advancing towards that goal? Are we really making any progress in spiritual life? There are some elements that we should incorporate as tests or barometers that will help us understand whether we are really advancing or not. One common example that I can think of is when we realize whether we are developing a taste in the chanting of the holy name. When we develop a taste, really, we want to leave everything that we're doing and just sit down and chant. When we develop that taste, then we can realize that slowly we are achieving the mercy of the Lord and advancing in Krishna consciousness. However, if we're still stuck at the point where we try to run away from chanting, give excuse to chant, then that is a reality check for us, a test that we are still very, very in a neophyte stage. So similarly, one test that Lord Vishnu is describing here is the ability to forgive. And Bhujan Prabhu says that one who does not forgive in a provoking situation, but who chooses to retaliate, that person is under the influence of material energy. So that is also a test that we can apply to ourselves. When somebody wrongs us, somebody does something very harshly to us, do we have the quality of forgiving them? Because all of the great souls, when we see the qualities, we see that in very, very provoking situations, they let go of it. Starting from Lord Vishnu himself. When we hear the pastime of Bhrigu Rishi, how Bhrigu Rishi, he traveled the worlds to find out among Lord Vishnu, Brahma, and Shivji, who's the most supreme. And when he kicks the chest of Lord Vishnu, and that's why, Lord Vishnu's one name is Bhrigupad, the one on whose chest is the impression of Rishi Bhrigu. Instead of, retaliating, Lord Vishnu starts to massage his feet, Bhrigu's feet, says, oh, I'm so sorry, Bhrigu Muni. Your feet may have just so soft, it may have gotten hurt because my chest is so hard. I'm sorry for that offense. So seeing that, Bhrigu Rishi realizes that Lord Vishnu is, he's definitely the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Indra's actions were under the modes of material nature. What Lord Vishnu is trying to encourage Prithu Maharaj to understand is what Indra was doing by stealing the horses, trying to interrupt the sacrifices, this was because of the influence of modes of material nature. So not directly being involved, but indirectly, he's been doing all these things. Now, how do we understand this? Because normally we hold people accountable for their actions, right? This is a very common term that we use nowadays, that if you did this, then you have to be held accountable. So the way we can understand this is, I'll give you an example. And suppose somebody, makes a wrong health choice and decides to eat something that is not in a good state. And as a result of that, he becomes sick. And when he becomes sick, he's starting to throw up, he's starting to, use the washroom a lot and just be very sort of unclean in that sense. Now, the act of throwing up, the act of, becoming sick and using the washroom so much, that part is not under the control of that individual. Yes, he made a wrong choice. He made maybe a wrong choice based on health perspective and chose to eat something that he should not have eaten. But what follows after that is not under his control. So similarly, when we see somebody who, is emitting a lot of vitriol, just using a lot of foul language, bad words, insulting, stealing, doing things that are not appropriate, a lot of that is because of some bad choices they may have made, and that now they don't have any control over the result of those actions. So great personalities usually forgive those individuals for those actions. When Jesus Christ was being crucified on the cross, there's a famous prayer, and he prays to the Lord, Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. These, Lord, they do not understand. They are under the spell of ignorance, avidya. And in that spell of ignorance, they're continuing to do all these crimes. So please forgive them because they don't understand the whole um, science behind it. There's also a saying, Bhujan Prabhu mentions in his writing, hate the sin, not the sinner. So normally if somebody does something, we should try to understand that see him in a diseased state and try to help him, because we are not hating the sinner, but we're obviously disliking the act that he may have. That is what Lord Vishnu is trying to encourage Prithu Maharaj to think and forgive in the day based on this principle. In text 3, it also goes on to describe, how an intelligent person, who's one who's eager to perform welfare activities. The word described in this shloka, Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport, is sudhiya. So sudhiya means one who's advanced in intelligence, and narottamaha. The uttama among the naras means the one who is a very advanced living entity, best among human beings. That person is always ready to forgive. He's never malicious to others, because he's conscious that the material body is different from the soul. It is said that don't judge a book by its covers. So oftentimes when we see people do some activity which looks heinous, looks very degrading, we quickly come to conclusions because we see that they're doing such a thing, so they must be a bad person. They must be a very evil person. But in truth, and in my personal experience, I can share with you, like as a physician, a lot of people come to me and share things with me. And I realized that, everybody has a story behind it. That every incident has a story behind it. A lot of people do wrong things in life because of wrong circumstances that they are placed under. Not necessarily that they wanted to do those things, but at some point in life they come to an junction where they did not have any other choice than to choose those things. How we can help them is, one, not by judging them, and two is by introducing them to Krishna consciousness to understand that even in those circumstances, they still have a choice. They can still choose, even in the worst of circumstances, to surrender to Krishna and to remember him, and Krishna will remove all obstacles that they may be going through. So, but in order to get to that point, you have to go through many layers of their life story to understand where all this is coming from. Prabhupada mentions in the purport to this, he gives a wonderful example that everyone who is conditioned by matter is mad. So anybody who accepts the material world as reality, doesn't understanding it to be temporary, is a mad person. And anybody who reacts to the mad person is also mad. If you see, when we walk on the streets, sometimes we may see a person who's acting crazy, he's shouting on the top of his voice, he's talking to himself. Now, nobody usually stops and tries to interact with him, right? Everybody understands that he's probably has some psychiatric condition, he's doing like this. That's okay. You keep walking and keep ignoring that. So it's because we understand that he doesn't mean it. He's just doing this out of his disease state. So similarly, when sometimes somebody says something to us, maybe something that's unpalatable, we should have this higher understanding that that particular individual is in a disease state like a madman. And what Prabhupada advises is that we should not react to a madman. Otherwise, we would ourselves be considered mad if we are trying to interact with a man. Prabhupada also quotes in the translation, in the purport, everything is done under the influence of modes of nature from Bhagavad Gita 5.14. Na kashrutvam na karmani. In text 4, now Lord Vishnu is saying that if a personality like you who are so advanced by executing the instructions of the previous acharyas is carried away by the influence of my material energy, then all your advancement may be considered simply a waste of time. When I read this, I remembered the pastime of Vishwamitra Muni. When we go through the life of Vishwamitra Muni, I was hearing in a lecture very recently last week of how an advanced soul he was. In the summertime, he used to go to the desert. Normally, we want not go to a desert in the summertime. He used to go to a desert in the summertime, and then he used to put 8 fires around him. In the heat, he's adding more heat, and in that particular situation, he used to do tapasya and control his mind. And in the winter time, he used to go to the peak of the glaciers, the peak of the Himalaya mountains, and in frozen conditions in the winter, it's so difficult to go even in summer in those places. In the winter, he used to go and do so much tapasya. So even though getting so much advancement by, like Hatha Yoga and having so much Gyan, he fell victim to lust by Menaka. We know that story. And he fell victim to anger by Ramba, another Apsara. And I'm sure we all know the background of that story as well. But how he became a really advanced devotee, because he was trying to become a Maharishi, is when he adopted the quality of forgiveness. So after failing with so many hurdles through lust, through anger, when finally he achieved God consciousness and peace of mind, and he was able to forgive in the last test when Indra Devta comes and he, when Maharshi Vishwamitra, he's trying to break his fast, and Indra Devta asks him, please, can you give me some food to eat? And instead of becoming angry, instead of becoming, saying, oh, no, how can I do that? No. He simply just gives his portion of meal to Indra Devta. Then it is realized that this is now no longer an ordinary soul. Despite having so much material advancement, he also has the quality of humility and forgiveness. So that story was there. Another important word that Prabhupada describes in the purport to this shloka is Vriddha Sevaya. Vriddha Sevaya means one who is following the instructions of the previous acharyas. So Lord says that you are very advanced because you're doing this. And he's telling Prithu Maharaj. So anybody who follows the instructions of the Guru Parampara is to be considered as an advanced soul. Recently also I heard another lecture that, Madhavendra Puri, one of the acharyas in our sampradayas, he had wonderful, illustrious disciples, many disciples. But of all of them, the one that we consider as to be in a topmost position is Ishwar Puri. That is the reason why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take shelter under him as his guru, as his disciple, and Ishwar Puri was his guru. And the reason for that is because Ishwar Puri very wonderfully served his guru Madhavendra Puri. When Madhavendra Puri was towards the end of his material lifetime, Ishwar Puri very personally and lovingly and did very basic menial service to him, even though he was a very advanced scholar. And because of this service attitude, this Vriddha Sevaya attitude, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to, become his disciple in order to teach the principle of Guru and disciple. So that is another principle we can learn here. Now, in text 5 and 6, there's a common theme of how we can understand the bodily concepts of life. And one who knows this, that the body is composed of nescience, desires, and activities resulting from illusion, do not become addicted to the body. And how can a person who's very learned be addicted to all the bodily attractions that are there? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes that body has two types of activities. One is that sense gratification will help us. This is a misconception. The second misconception is that we can become happy trying to satisfy the desires that we have. So with these two misconceptions, we normally, most people live in this ignorance. In another place, I remember Prabhupada's example. Prabhupada stated that this material life is like a war zone. So if you're in a war zone, you can never be happy. You can never have peace of mind, right? Because if suppose one bomb falls and misses you, you cannot feel like, oh, now I'm fine. Now nothing will happen. No, because next moment another bomb is going to come, another bullet is going to come. So similarly, having this consciousness that that I am the body and things in this material world are going to be fine, that itself is avidya. In text 7, the Lord now describes his own qualities, his own gunas. It is said, Eka Shuddha Swayam Jyoti. This Ekaha, this individual soul that's described in this particular translation, is in reference to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, in his Bhagavatam Shubodhani, Gauranga Darshan Prabhu has wonderfully explained the differences between the super soul and the individual soul, and some of it which is highlighted in this particular text and the purport of Srila Prabhupada to this text. So I'm just going to read out those. The first quality of the super soul is Ekaha. Ekaha means he is one and original. And the individual soul is Anekaha. There are many, many living entities who are there in many, many forms, as trees, animals, insects, birds, human beings. Second quality is super soul is Shuddha. He's pure, and individual living entities Ashuddha or impure. Third super soul is Swayam Jyoti. He's self-effulgent. Whereas the material living entity, the soul, the Jivatma, is covered. The fourth is he's Nirguna, means he is without material qualities. And the Jivatma is Saguna, he is bound by material qualities. Fifth is he's Guna Ashraya, he is the abode of all wonderful qualities. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Jivatma is Guna Ashrita, he's engaged in material qualities, he's bound, restricted by the material modes. Sixth is he is Sarvago. Supreme Personality of Godhead can go anywhere without any restrictions. And the Jivatma definitely is not there. Seven, he is Anavrataha. Eight is he Sakshi. He's a witness to all conditions, whereas super soul, the living entity, has only a limited understanding. He's a Sakshi. Ninth is he's Niratmatmanaha. And 10th is his para, that is beyond this material world. This is a wonderful description that Lord Vishnu gives, that he tells the difference between super soul and living entity. Now in text 8, Lord describes that anybody, even though he stays in this material world, but understands the difference between Paramatma and Atma, like he just explained in text 7, is never affected by the modes of material nature. Or he's always situated in my transcendental loving service. So, because the Lord is not restricted by the modes of material nature, anybody who fully surrenders unto him also transcends the modes and takes shelter. There was in Leela Mehta, there comes the story where once in ISKCON there used to be a sweet meat that people used to distribute. It's called Simply Wonderful. It's used to be made of like condensed milk and sugar. So once devotees had made this and they offered it to Prabhupada, this was the first time Prabhupada had this. Prabhupada tasted it and he said, "Oh wow, this is simply wonderful." I'm not exactly sure how the name came. So Prabhupada said, "This is simply wonderful," and Prabhupada said, "This is simply wonderful because your God, Krishna, whom you are offering the sweet meat to, is simply wonderful. So Krishna is simply wonderful. The prasadam is simply wonderful, and when you take the prasad, you also become simply wonderful." So in this way, anytime when we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is transcended the modes of material nature, obviously he's not transcended, he's beyond the modes of material nature. That quality, pure devotee also gets. And Prabhupada quotes Rupa Goswami in the purport to this particular text. In text 9, Lord describes that when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied with it. So he's talking a little bit about karma yogi, that even if while doing whatever your own occupational duty is, but without motive for material gain, one can become satisfied. So anyone in any occupational duty can worship the Lord. Prabhupada elaborates on the purport. In text 10, it's described that when the heart is cleansed of all material contamination, the devotee's mind becomes broader and transparent, and he is situated equally with me as Satchidananda Vigraha. In the purport to the shloka, Prabhupada emphasizes on the word Kaivalyam, that the word Kaivalyam is different. The Mayavadi is treated as different, and the Vaishnava is treated as different. The Mayavadis say Kaivalyam means reaching the understanding of merging and becoming one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the Vaishnava Acharyas, they disagree, and they say Kaivalyam means the understanding where one knows his true position as a servant of the servant of the servant of, and since he establishes his relationship again with the Lord, and that is the final goal. One time, we understand that chant, and that is our mood when we chant the holy names. So when we chant, we are praying to Radha Krishna that, "Hey Radha Rani, please engage me in the loving devotional service of Sri Krishna." And that is our goal, and that is the goal is Krishna Prem. But Mayavadis, they don't understand this. For them, the goal is to merge the existence. So Prabhupada obviously has a very wonderful sense of humor. So one time when a new devotee came in and he did not know the full conclusions of the philosophy, and he was chanting, and he came to Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, I'm chanting, and I can see the light, Prabhupada, I can see the light. He was very excited that he had reached the stage that he can see the light. Prabhupada just very simply cut him off and said, don't worry, you keep chanting, the light will go away. Trying to instruct him that the light is not the goal is the lotus feet of Shri Radha, how we can serve them wonderfully. So in text 11, it said that anyone who knows this material body made of the 5 elements is simply supervised by the fixed soul is eligible to be liberated from material bondage. So in this purport, Prabhupada describes the word Dehi as one who possesses the material body, and that is the soul, the living entity, and Deha. Deha is the gross material body and the subtle body. There are 8 elements, we know from Bhagavad Gita as well, right? Bhumirapi analo vayu kham mana buddhi evacha ahankara iti jamme bhinna prakriti ashtadha. These 8 elements, comprising the 5 gross and the 3 subtle elements, they comprise the external covering, and that is what bounds the living entity. So anybody who knows this, that this material body simply supervised by the fixed soul is eligible to be liberated from material bondage. And one who reaches this consciousness is stated to be in a state of samadhi. This wonderful purport, and Prabhupada has explained it really well. So I would encourage devotees to read the purport to text 11 today, if we have time. And the last shloka for today, in text 12, Lord Vishnu goes on to describe to Prithu Maharaj how, again, the same concept of understanding that we are not the body, but we are the soul. And one who understands that and connects to me in intense friendship and affection, being completely in knowledge, is never agitated by material happiness and distress. Prabhupada starts the purport with a question. He says, one may think that how is it possible for a living entity to be indifferent to the activities of the body? When you're sitting in the body, you're in the body. How can you be indifferent to the activities of the body? So Prabhupada explains in the purport that we can understand this with a crude example of a businessman. When a businessman sits in his car and tells the driver that please, take me to such and such a place, and it may be like a 30-minute or 1 hour car drive. So once he says that, he's checked that the gas is there and the driver knows the instruction and everything. During the whole journey, the businessman is not micromanaging. That's the term that we use, is not micromanaging the aspects of the journey: when to turn left, when to turn right, when to stop at the red light, when to go, which route to take or something. He just tells them this is what needs to be done and make sure all the arrangements are there for that particular thing to be done. But after that, in the entire car journey, the businessman is thinking about his business. What am I going to do today? How am I going to improve my business? This and that. He is not paying attention to the actual journey itself necessarily. So similarly, an advanced devotee, in this lifetime, we take care of our basic needs, but our consciousness is fixed more on what our higher goal is. That is how we can achieve or advance in our bhakti, in Krishna consciousness. Uh, in this shloka, there's a word used, baddha sauridaha. That means one who is bound to me in friendship. Krishna says it's only for that person who's able to conquer these modes of material nature and transcend them. So Lord Vishnu has talked about a few different aspects. One who controls who gives up the actions of his work, one who controls his senses and mind, one who achieves jnana. But again, he emphasizes that only that person who's bound to me in friendship and action, that is, in loving devotional service, can achieve this goal. So what is most important in our activities and what we do is consciousness. In Karma Yoga, the consciousness is also to share something with the Lord, the results of our activities, but we also do something for our own self. In Jnana Yoga, the consciousness is more to achieve knowledge and liberation. In Hatha Yoga, the consciousness is more to achieve control of our body and senses. But in Krishna consciousness, in Bhakti Yoga, the consciousness is to achieve the wonderful service of Sri Sri Radha. And that is why the consciousness is the most important part of what we do. Whatever we do, we should do it in the right consciousness. And that is why Prabhupada stressed on this so much. Even in the abbreviation of ISKCON, we see ISK, International Society for Krishna, and then we see consciousness, CON. So consciousness is emphasized even in our society naming. So with this, I'll end our discussion today. Thank you everybody for your time. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.